silence until another person joins.
Are we good? Jerry, you ready to go? All right. Welcome everyone to the County meeting tonight. And at this time, I'd like to do the roll call. You just confirm your attendance. I guess if you're not in, you can't confirm your attendance. You can, but Nancy Baker.
Here.
Ronnie Beal. Here. Carl's here.
Carl's here.
Carl's here. I'm sorry. Larry Cox. Larry's not here. Okay. Carolyn Coward. Here. Okay. Joyce Edwards.
Here.
Maggie Faulkner.
Here.
Okay. Hey, Maggie. Okay. Vicki Green.
Here.
Jeff Heck. Okay. Judy Johansson.
Here.
Michael Lavender. Pat McGinnis.
Here.
Marsh Pittman.
Here.
Judy Poe. Andy Stone. Duncan Sumter.
Here.
Ed Charlton.
Here.
And Charles Vines.
Here.
We have four.
Tom, could you bring in a public comment?
Our first speaker tonight under public comment is Kathy White.
Come on, fellas, I want to introduce you. Come on, I want to introduce you. Come on. Come on, bud. Come on up here. My name is Dr. Catherine Ritter. I'm a Buncombe County resident. I want to introduce you to my friends Sean and Shannon today. I want to talk about the institutional bias in the current waiver for families who are taking care of their children at home. These two gentlemen who are 47 live with dad and mom, and they get 12 hours. Oh, let's work on our appearance there. They get 12 hours a day of services. They sleep about 6 hours, which means that mom and dad spend 6 hours a day volunteering to care for the kids and to keep them safe, to care for the brothers. The option would be, since you can only have 12 hours, is to be in an AFL, an alternative family living, but the two would be separated. And as twins, the thought is they like to be together. The other alternative would be a 3-person group home. This one, Happy One in the blue, is Mr. Destructo. His bedroom is super walled with very thick plasterboard, and then there's a non-pullable carpet because he likes to get the end and ravel it. And then the window is made out of that stuff that race cars. Okay, so that he can't break it. There isn't a provider in the world who can afford to make him a room that meets his needs. So we're in a quandary because Larry and Annette aren't getting any younger. So I wanted to talk with you today about the fact that there are some people who just don't fit the norm and could actually benefit from getting more than 12 hours worth of services at home. Did I forget anything? Did you want
Well, no, except the services keep dwindling, and they have ever since we moved to North Carolina. When we lived in South Carolina, we had a lawyer that the entire mental health department was afraid of. So we got all the services we wanted. But they, arriving here in North Carolina, services have continued to dwindle, including respite, which when we first came was 1,500 hours a year.
Yeah, so we got some broken knuckles, and we got one that didn't like it when they stopped at the stoplights. Do pretty good getting in the car and letting to go for a ride, but not when you have to stop. Anyway, I continue to bring people I think you need to meet because I think it's important to recognize what living in the trenches is like. So Shannon and Sean, Annette and Larry are dear friends, and in conclusion, think of 47 years of changing diapers. These people are saints. Okay, come on, guys.
Our next speaker is Mary Short.
Hello, Mary Short, Alexander County, and Katie. Katie's kind of had her fill of LME-MCO Board of Directors meetings. In case y'all didn't check Jerry's website, Katie and I were at the Partners Board of Directors meeting. That was sort of a hoot. Anyway, I was sort of looking at this North Carolina Innovations and ICF-IDD Level of Care Summary, May of 2014. And this was given at the Quality Improvement Committee that meets 3 o'clock. And I don't think it's in your board packet this month. It's been in there previous months. But one of sort of the interesting things about this report to me that I haven't talked to you about in the past is the termination of slot cause. So for May, it says that there were 7 individuals admitted to skilled nursing facilities. So they're no longer on the innovations waiver. They've been admitted to a skilled nursing facility. So those 7 individuals, see, they're not a part of your capitation anymore. So you get to keep their capitation. Cool, huh? Okay, and then admitted to DD Center, there were 2. So 7 and 2, okay, 9. And then admitted to Community ICF-IDD was 3. So that's 12. So that's 12 individuals who are off the innovations waiver because those 12 hours of service that the innovation waivers authorizes was unable to meet their needs. 12. So I want you to really think about what that means, those 12 hours. And I would bet that of those 12 individuals, I would bet almost all of them left their family home where the family was denied the ability to work more than 40 hours. Or if they only asked to work 40 hours, couldn't find that miracle staff for the other 44 hours, because 40 and 44 is 84 and 12 times 7 is 84. So I'll bet if you really drill down into these numbers, you would see the institutional bias in action. So as I was reading the DOJ settlement letter about the adult care homes, it was sort of fascinating in the way they spoke about people with mental illness and their ADA right to remain in the least restrictive environment with the most integrated setting, meaning interacting with their non-handicapped peers. So right now, Katie has no daily interaction with handicapped individuals. She's about to have daily interaction with handicapped individuals. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the review and approval of the agenda.
Jerry signed up, I think.
I signed something.
All right, Jerry. Jerry Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've always been allowed for, you know. I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. You know, children has always been my thing in school, and I'm still after that little cat. because it's bigger and bigger every day. Here is some things. In the law that we talk about on the reform, it's talking about choice, family choice, individual choice. But does the law really give you that choice? I wanted the lawyers to pay attention because I think it's going to get big and exciting. Because we're coming down to two providers for the big area. We're coming down to agglomerates. We're not coming down to individuals. And the rights of individuals are being trumped on every day. We have an opportunity right now to make a difference here at Smokey if we wanted to. I want to see if you step up to the plate. There's 400 kids on home school-based therapy that's going to be put into another agency come July. And they are going to be shifted into this therapy without a transition. Did you hear that? Everything you do in this business organization that's big, you're going through all kinds of transitions. Your medical director, and if he agreed that you didn't need a transition for a child from one therapist to another, I would be concerned about your medical director or anyone else on this staff. So my concern is that these people have not even been given a notice of a therapy to be able to go to a new therapist. But we have an interesting fact. I have sat in court room many days with these clients that I'm talking about and these people with families, with children. The judges are ordering medication to be given. They're ordering for therapists to be changed and another therapist to go. Is that really legal for a judge to do? I think Smoky Mountain attorneys need to have somebody sitting in listening at what's going on with these providers. They love a provider that goes in the courtroom and agrees with everything the judge says. The judge puts his pants on just like I do. I respect them as long as we can call them honorable, but a lot of them ain't honorable. A lot of lawyers too. So when you sit in the courtroom and hear what I do, you can see why kids and parents are getting the raw end of the deal. And I'm concerned about that. Their rights are being tromped on, and I'm wondering if the MCO here has got anybody monitoring the courtrooms and the providers in that venue. Because DSS attorneys don't. They don't even file a motion when the judge does something he shouldn't do. They won't even file a motion.
No.
So, what would you feel like if this happened to you? Is this the spirit, the intent of the law as we read it today for choice?
No.
Just think about it. Is it small talk? Or what is it? Just think about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Your lines up here for a moment to help me out, and Mr. Pittman, I'm very happy to see him here this evening, keeping something for you. I think you're the last one to get one of these. Is that right, Connie?
Yes, sir, it is.
We couldn't let you end your tenure with Western Highlands without a little bit of ceremony. We wanted to try to do a little something here for you.
I want to have a plaque on here from Western Highlands Network. Says deep appreciation for your individual talents and concern, dedication so generously given to the citizens of our community. Board of Directors, Western Highlands Authority, February 2014. I'm glad to see you recovered from the accident you're doing this.
You didn't tell me just to give a 30-minute speech, right? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you confirm who's on the line, please? Hello?
Who's on the phone, please?
Who's on the phone?
Maggie Faulkner.
Is anyone else? Okay, thank you.
You might want to mute your phone there, Maggie. We were getting a lot of feedback.
Next item on the agenda is review and approval of the agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? If you have, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Okay, I think Ed made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Dan? Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, at this time, we're going to go to agenda item F. Is that right? Okay. Like I said, agenda item K.
The goal is to make sure we have a quorum for the items that are really critical today.
That's a good thing.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call on Fred. Where's Fred?
You have before you the financial statements for the last month. There's not too much of a change from the prior month, except to talk about the increase in accounts receivable. There is a 1.5 million increase in accounts receivable due to the discrepancy with who's on the general eligibility in terms of who gets paid and included in the PMPM versus an attempt at reconciling who's currently receiving Medicaid in the 23 counties, and there is a discrepancy. There are a greater number of individuals who are enrolled in the Medicaid program in the 23 counties than we are being paid for under the PMPM. What was done is a very conservative recognition of some of that revenue, pending discussions with the Division of Medical Assistance on how that's to be reconciled. This is not an exclusive smoky issue. It does affect the other LMEs as well, and we're attempting to reconcile that. This is very much tied into MC tracts and difficulties with MC tracts statewide. The other item that increased accounts receivable by about $2 million are payment recoveries from the providers that are due given our year-end position. The Medicaid risk reserve is applied on a 2% basis on cash received through the PMPM, and that is also stated here. And there has been an increase and continues to be an increase as far as a fund balance under the Medicaid program. Overall, we are positively getting revenue over expenses, and that's increasing this particular past month. The next sheet, the balance sheet, is simply detailing it, breaking it down by funding source, meaning the balance sheet by funding source. This is done on a fully accrued basis and does how to say this, specify in terms of the fund balance, how that is changing by funding source. A more delineated statement in terms of revenue versus expense by service category is on the yellow sheet that is enclosed. Again, indicating that a predominant number of services being provided by the organization in the MCO is through the Medicaid program, with the two largest program expenses being in terms of the ICFMRs and the innovation program. And that continues to be the case. In looking at the service category descriptions, it delineates increased decline in the use of PRTF services, a great deal of clinical effort has been expended in addressing the growth in that particular program. The savings have been demonstrated through the last couple of months. There is, however, some offsetting increases due to moving people to more appropriate levels of service. However, overall, we are in a positive position. On the balance sheet, I would also indicate that the current assets over current liabilities is in a positive direction. It's currently 2.27, which is a good place to be. I won't go into the dashboard-related presentation here, except to say that the Medicaid current ratio is at 1.94, again healthy, and there's a pictorial representation of the current assets, current liabilities overall. Any questions or issues?
And we need, the board needs to adopt those reports, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Okay, Ed, second. Any more discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think too, we need to make sure that the board approves the rest of the finance committee actions. That was the approval of the minutes and approval of the proposed year-end budget amendments. And also the finance committee is recommending to the full board to approve any year-end budget amendments that may come up in the next week. Again, they should be few and far between, but yesterday we did receive another allocation from DMH and we need to incorporate that into the final budget.
Can all this be in the same motion?
I think it can, and also Fred needs to, we want to go over number 3 to the adoption of the fiscal
Right,
year.
I will do everything else to
14-15
do
budget.
that last. Okay. All right, with that, you're okay with your motion?
I'll need to include all of it, and I apologize for jumping the gun here with this.
Yeah, you're okay with that, okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now the adoption of the fiscal year 14-15 budget. Lisa and Fred.
Okay. The proposed budget presented to you is the exact same as last month. As is required, it has been posted on the Smc-Whn website for the last month since the last meeting. It is unamended and unchanged since that original statement was made. Public comments were solicited. I have not received any from the public in reference to this particular budget. There is within it, in terms of personal services, a 2% increase. The application of that would be suspended until such time we receive confirmation from the Division of Mental Health in reference to what the final standing of our administrative services allocation happens to be. We don't have the final budget from the General Assembly just yet, so that will be held in suspension until we know for sure. Within the budget proposal itself, there is $500,000 in contingencies, and some of it may be able to cover that, but if it's a significant amount above that, we of course go to the board for its approval. Other than that, it is as it's previously been stated. I would highlight one thing which is of interest to many, and that is personal services in terms of its overall budget is approximately 9.2%. And when you look at the fringe in personal services, it accounts for about 30%. Now, one might say that is high, but given the state employment nature of the employee workforce here, there is a significant retirement contribution, and that is part of the overall package. Another major cost is, of course, medical coverage, and that the costs are flat, considering on a per employee basis from the immediate prior year. So that has not significantly changed.
Any questions you'd like to add? Yes. And I would like to report that the Finance Committee met earlier today and discussed the budget and recommended the budget to the full board. So at this time, I think we're ready for a motion to approve the fiscal year 14-15 budget as presented.
Mr. Chair, Finance Committee's recommendation to make a motion that you adopt the 2014-2015 budget this coming year.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Second that motion.
All right. Any more discussion about the budget? All in favor of approving the budget, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Passed unanimously. Thank you. Choose us. Okay, back to item D on budget, on the agenda, review and approval of the prior meeting minutes, that's the minutes from May 22nd. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Motion to approve minutes is given.
All right, we have a motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have 2 seconds, Joyce and Charles. All in favor of approval of minutes, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. That's unanimous. Okay. Next item is Directors and Officers Liability Presentation. You want to do that?
Let me just,
Okay.
I'm afraid we're going to get, we had tried to coordinate to have a comment from the Leader Chancellor at 5 o'clock, and I suspect he'd be calling in any minute. So we were able to do something that could tolerate being interrupted by changing the agenda. How would that work? Do that?
Okay. You want to do that? That is item N. Okay, item comment about it?
While we're waiting for Secretary Chancellor, one of the other actions that was taken by the executive committee today was to recommend approval of the FY 14-15 compliance program plan. You all should have received that in your board packets. Did everybody receive that? Assuming we have time, I will be doing a vantage point later this afternoon. We can go over that in more detail. But we did go over it in pretty significant detail at the executive committee today. So if no one has any questions, I guess I would request that you make that recommendation before we get a motion.
All right. Everyone read that? We would like the executive committee to review it. They recommend approval of the policy of the quality improvement committee. Compliance plan. Is there a motion for approval? Okay. Charles and Carl Buck. Is there?
I'll be the second.
Okay.
I was the second behind.
All right. Any more discussion? Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. So that's great. We'll run through G. The executive committee met this afternoon. We had discussed a number of things. We did discuss, reported on the compliance program plan. Our attorney reviewed it in some detail. We talked about, Michael gave us an update. I think he's also talked a little bit about the County Commission Advisory Board update. Talked about legislation and a number of other things, but instead of talking about that, let's just get on with it. At this time, I'll call on Vicki Green to make a recommendation to the nominating committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The nominating committee met right before this full board meeting, and thanks to Carolyn Coward, we had a name presented to us with an incredibly appropriate resume and work history. Myrna Scruggs Harris, who for the last 14 years has been employed by Crescent Health Solutions and has also been employed with other health agencies, including Appalachian House, St. Joseph's, and WNC Health Delivery. It was a unanimous vote to recommend to the full board that Myrna be approved to represent the insurance industry. And that's a motion.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Okay, and a second. Any more discussion?
She's
And
even
she
here.
cares, yes.
I was teasing Vicky about we better do this before.
Yes, stand up so we can see it. Let's give her a round of applause.
I'm honored to be asked.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the appointment, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, welcome aboard.
Sounds like we got Lanier. Do we have you?
Yes, you do.
Excellent. How's everything up in Raleigh today?
Excuse me?
I say, how's everything up in Raleigh today?
Oh, best you've ever seen.
Well, we're hoping for you to give us a full report if you can.
Well, I'll give you what we know, and right now it is about as, from everything that I can gather from all sources, it's about as big a mess. The history where the Senate came out with their budget proposal, after the governor came out with his Medicaid reform plan, and we kind of knew what that was going to do. It was fine. Then the Senate came out with their budget proposal, which turned everything on its ear, said, forget the ACAs, we're going to have either public or private managed care, they're totally capitated, it made no real mention of the LME MCOs other than they're going to budget for administrative savings based upon mergers to at least a maximum number of 7. Rather than before it's been talked about, we use number 7. Eliminate categories of age-blind disabled, which they were estimating 15,000. We think it's probably more like 30 to 40,000 people impacted. So it was a real hard line, we're going to reduce the budget kind of thing. Then the House came out with their budget, which basically had no discussion of Medicaid reform at all. It was a more traditional kind of budget around Medicaid, making some modifications, cut funding at the level they thought appropriate, creating a Medicaid reserve fund, which any insurance operation ought to have, doing all those kind of things, much more, I think, operationally and much more reasonable proposal than what the Senate had done. And then the House took their Medicaid reform legislation, modified it to try to beat the Senate at least partially by saying, okay, we want the entire program to be capitated by the year 2020, which would give us 6 years to do that. It would still be provider-led, still kind of closing the door on commercial managed care. Was pretty much silent about LME MCOs, although I don't think there was a real intent to change that. Nothing that the House has done agrees with the Senate budget on eliminating the 2 categories of eligibility. And where the Senate wanted to move move Medicaid out of DHHS and get it into what the News and Observer called the Department of Not Run by Laura Ross. The House did not offer to do that. They did say we want to start confirming whoever's hired as the Medicaid director. So the House was the version that most everybody in the Health and Human Services arena has kind of jumped on. The Senate now is basically saying, no, we don't like the House version. We won't, I think what I'm hearing right now is they still are pressing to try to get Medicaid pulled out of DHHS. They want the whole idea of the ACO removed or taken off the table, where the House version of Medicaid reform does not mention ACAs, but does not close the door on ACAs. The Senate kind of says, let's get rid of that. The Senate is not happy with the numbers for the Medicaid budget and grilled State Budget Director Art Pope today on how in the world as a businessman he could feel good about those numbers, because they've got all kind of information to indicate that there's a lot of unpaid Medicaid claims that's going to push those numbers up by another 140, 150 million. So the House right now is holding firm that they're not going to go along with the radical ideas the Senate has. The Senate is saying we're standing firm on our ideas. So, the House today passed a budget that dealt only with education teacher pay raises. It did reportedly have some provision in there for a Medicaid reserve fund. Took care of a couple of little details, but really is just what they referred to as a mini budget to deal with the things they felt had to be dealt with. And then they said, okay, if the Senate doesn't want to agree on any of this other stuff, we'll just pass this and go home. And so the teacher pay raises, et cetera, be taken care of. The Senate initial indication was we're not interested in that budget. We want to do a budget. So as of right now, I don't have a crystal ball clear enough to have any idea what they're going to do. Except that the folks I'm talking to are beginning to believe there will not be any kind of Medicaid reform into legislation of substance. And that the budget, or whatever it's going to be, is probably not going to be the kind of budget we've seen in the past. They're talking now about the possibility of basically leading a committee there to work on the budget, and everybody else is going home, and then maybe call them back when they figure out what they're going to do. But it's really become a real contest between the Senate and the House and Governor about where this is going to go. The Senate says, we want to fix all these things. I guess his commentary, when I was in the legislature and the Republicans controlled the House, Democrats controlled the Senate and the Hunt, and we had a much better working relationship in that environment than what we got right now with Republicans controlling everything. The Senate is really focused on making dramatic change. They're really focused on reducing the growth of the Medicaid budget, and they don't accept anything differently. And I'm concerned that perhaps they're making a lot of these decisions without having a lot of conversation with folks to understand the real implications of some of the things that they're doing. When the Senate said they wanted to eliminate these two categories of eligibility, the comment was, well, they can go over, these people can go over the exchange and get this insurance. Well, first of all, many of those people are in long-term care environments, and you can't get that in the exchange. You can't get that insurance there. 75% or so of everybody in nursing homes and assisted living are paid for with Medicaid or Medicaid resources, and that eliminating those categories would impact folks there. So there's just a lot of stuff going on in the House that's saying, no, we're not going to do that. I think with Tom Tillis running for U.S. Senate, if he wants to gather a broader support, then I think the position the House taking is more beneficial to them. But, what we're doing is watching and waiting, and they intend to adjourn for the end of June. Obviously, that's Monday. Obviously, that's not likely to happen unless the Senate passes the mini budget and off the go. And I think the mini budget is built upon an average 5% pay raise for teachers, and some pay increase for state employees. Senator Berger, pro tem, has been adamant that he wants to have a larger raise besides the people voluntarily say, okay, I'll take the raise and give up any kind of income. So they're philosophically standing firm right now in the Senate, and that means I'm not sure what's going to happen right away. With respect to LDMCAs, I think, based on everything I'm hearing, there's nothing going to happen in this session that changes what we do one way or the other than the fact that they're taking any kind of reduction for administrative costs. We're either going to have to consume that, or hopefully there will be some savings in some mergers that may take place. but don't see anything that would force us into any kind of merger position right now, because that's just not been in the cards, not like it's going to be. Does that give you a little bit of idea of how crazy it is?
Lanier, have you read Senator Berger's press release at 1 o'clock?
Today at 1 o'clock?
Yeah.
No, I'm doing meetings all afternoon, I have not done that.
Here's two sentences.
Today at 1 o'clock.
Here's two sentences for you. The Senate stands ready to negotiate a fair compromise on the budget, but we cannot accept unrealistic Medicaid estimates that would create an unbalanced, unsustainable budget. Art Pope and Nelson Dollar's latest budget gimmick fails to account for the state's deteriorating Medicaid situation and would violate North Carolina's constitutional requirement. But the silver lining is at least they finally decided not to gamble on gambling for teacher raises. So it don't sound too good.
No, and I did read, or I saw somewhere that the quote about the Medicaid budget, and that's been a part of their deal. They think that the budget that the House and the governor's put together is not adequate. They think there's a lot more liability out there. And I listened to the discussion this morning when our folks spoke to the Senate committee, and I heard the questions, et cetera, and they believe that, like I said earlier, they believe there's like 140 million or so of additional state liability out there in hospital claims. Art Pope, the department, everyone says, no, we've accounted for all those unpaid claims. But the Senate doesn't like. The Senate thinks they're wrong. That's when I think once Senator Tillman was talking to Art Pope and said, you're a businessman, I just can't believe you're accepting these numbers. And Art said that, all the analysis and everything indicate the numbers are solid. They're okay with it. But they were creating a $50 million reserve so that if there were overruns this summer, they'd have $50 million to help cover. So they made this to become a big issue is can you depend upon the numbers out of the department? And quite honestly, I don't know whether you can or you can't, but our folks and his folks, and I know when I was Secretary of State Budget, hammered us pretty hard on the accuracy numbers. So assuming they're doing the same thing, then the numbers ought to be relatively accurate. I think the Senate's position is we want to make sure that we don't have a shortfall. We want to make sure we appropriate enough money that will cover the year and they won't come back to us wanting more money. And they just right now don't believe that the House and the governor, the administration's accounting is such that they can feel comfortable that more money is not going to be needed before the next year ends. So that's going on, and they're really making pretty much the whole argument about not completing the budget about Medicaid. And so we'll just kind of see it. That's why the House said, okay, let's put a reserve up for the Medicaid, and let's do the teacher pay raises, and let's go on. So we'll see. So I guess Brian and I, and we all talk about every day about what's going on, and it's just my gut feeling is that nothing's going to happen in this session that's going to have a negative impact on us. That's going to come back to what we said before is between now and the next long session is when we really got to do some convincing and make some decisions about where we're going to be, because I think that's when the action's going to occur. They're not going to have a speaker that's running for senator. They're not going to have campaigns they want to get to for the fall. They're going to be in a long session that they'll be around for 6 months or so, and I think more likely that's what's going to happen. But the pressure may even be higher because that means another year is going to pass before they really start implementing other changes in Medicaid management.
Yeah, and just to give you an idea of how fluid all of this is, as early as 2 days ago, we were pretty hopeful that there would be discussion and even an amendment to the new House bill of Medicaid modernization that was interesting in that there's one section in there, section 10, and Lanier, we made copies for folks just in anticipation that some amount of our conversation might be about that tonight, but you see how quickly this has changed.
particular section 10 around demonstration project for individuals in the innovations or the C waivers we call it, and also folks who are in intermediate care facilities to be enrolled in a fully capitated plan for both their health and behavioral health, if you will, care, that raised quite a lot of discussion. But we're not even talking about that. I sent 14 or 15 emails to representatives in the House, just kind of giving them a heads up about the potential for that legislation to be heard, and an amendment to that which would have, I think, fortified the future role for MCOs, and that was 2 days ago. And that it doesn't even look like, as Lanier pointed out, something as significant as Medicaid reform and all the discussions we've had here about that, and you read about, it's not even going to be on the docket. So, but we appreciate a very detailed summary, Lanier. You got your finger on the pulse, and I don't know if folks have any questions about things. It's a big roller coaster ride.
Well, we have our lady down there trying to keep me informed of any behind-the-scenes information she can get, but I also got other folks. I had lunch with a guy who's a pretty big political operative today, and we talked about, a lot of this and, what's behind it, what may impact it, et cetera, but I think it just comes down, really, and bottom line is philosophically, the Senate just don't like Medicaid. From the standpoint of they think it's taking up too much of the budget, and they're looking for a quick fix. And folks, when it comes to Medicaid is a symptom of a larger issue of healthcare costs, and there's not going to be a quick fix to Medicaid until they fix the larger system. But the whole idea about trying to create a more comprehensive approach, better managing the dollars, placing some risk on providers, et cetera, helps to control it a little bit. And, what I keep telling folks is the LME NCAs have done in the behavioral health world what they're wanting to do overall, and have done it successfully, or demonstrating success, or showing improvements, or improving quality, or doing all these things, have gotten past the humps you had originally, sometimes claims payment getting done timely, and those kind of things, are working towards greater standardization from the standpoint of credentialing, those kind of things, and we're going exactly where they want to be, and that they need to recognize that. So however we move forward with Medicaid reform, whatever we move forward with it, we need to keep that as a part of the overall package. Don't throw it out if it's not broken. And I really think that's a general consensus among the House, and I think even the governor and the administration. The Senate just wants a quick fix, and I think they're getting a lot of information from big insurance companies, et cetera, that would like to get in this Medicaid environment and saying how they can do things quicker and do things better. I think that's a part of the issue right now, and there's just that silver bullet that they want doesn't exist the way that they may think it does.
Any questions? Appreciate it, Lanier. We'll be in touch, okay?
All right, we'll talk to you for the next day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. There you have it.
All right, back on the agenda item E, Directors and Officers Liability Presentation.
I'd like to introduce Gene Hilton from Wells Fargo and his colleague Tyler O'Connor, who will give a presentation about some of the questions that the board has had.
Hi, Gene Hilton. I'm with Wells Fargo. Insurance Services, which is a division of Wells Fargo Bank, Wells Fargo Corporation. I work with a number of clients in the western North Carolina area, Smoky Mountain being one of them. And I handle the property casualty side for Smoky Mountain as your insurance broker for Smoky Mountain, which is the property, the liabilities, the workers' compensation, and other coverages. Tyler is with me as our D&O expert, and I understand you have questions on that. So I'm going to turn it over to Tyler and let him talk a little about the D&O and open it up to questions. I believe we have a handout that Tracy has prepared to give a bit of an overview of directors and officers coverage.
It's a handout from the School of Government. It's just a basic overview of what local government official potential liability individuals are. Really, we had, essentially what prompted this, we had a board member who specifically requested that we do a presentation on directors and officers liability.
Good evening, I'm Tyler O'Connor.
Would you please speak up, please?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening with you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and the executive staff. It's an honor to represent an organization such as yours on behalf of your insurance. And in terms of the directors and officers, cut straight to it. This is the insurance vehicle that allows organizations across any spectrum, from private profit, nonprofit, governmental, to attract and retain qualified member directors and officers and chief executive staff. So we have in place a liability policy for directors and officers and employment practices liability dating back to 2005 for your organization. Your organization's obviously gone through quite a bit of expansive change over this last year with the Western Highlands introduction. We feel that we've got a great program that is continuing in existence for you. We are having conversations about the adequate limit of insurance, which I'll leave to your executive officers to discuss. But just in the most broad sense, not to bore you because you have much more important items here, but this is, again, the vehicle to protect you personally for your work on behalf of Smoky Mountains and Western Highlands. So it is intended to protect you as a director, officer, executive, employee, and protect your financial assets. There are extensions in the policy to extend even to your spouse and to your estate in the event that any one of you becomes deceased. The intent of the policy is to cover past, present, and future directors, officers, employees, and executive staff of the entity, so that as you roll on and off these boards, the entity still retains coverage, you still retain coverage for the time that you have been here and the decisions that you've made. The way that the policy works is essentially it's broken out in a very core chassis. There is coverage A that is designed for reimbursement of you as an individual in the event that there's a claim against the directors and officers of Smoky Mountain, and Smoky Mountain as an organization is legally or by your bylaws able to indemnify you as a director and officer. There is coverage for, insurance coverage for that. There's coverage in the event that Smoky Mountain is not able, either by bylaw or by state statute, to indemnify you as a director or officer. There's still insurance for that as well. Further, there's insurance for Smoky Mountain as an organization in the event that Smoky Mountain, as is most commonly found, is named in a suit as well. So just to drill that down in case that was confusing, if you as a director are named in a suit and Smoky Mountain is not able to indemnify you, there is insurance for that, for your financial assets. If Smoky Mountain is able to indemnify you, there is reimbursement coverage for Smoky Mountain. If Smoky Mountain is named in the suit as well, there's entity coverage for Smoky Mountain. Those are the three components of a D&O policy. Further, there is coverage for employment practices liability for the discrimination in any type of employment-related incident. So if someone is discriminated against, or an allegation, even if it's baseless, this is a duty to defend policy. So even if there's an allegation that is baseless, that someone was discriminated against, sexually harassed in any way, in their employment, there is coverage for that under this insurance policy. I'm trying to think what else I can address. Some common suits and common claims. And Tracy will be a great reference for similar claims of organizations such as yours, and specifically maybe in North Carolina. But allegations of wrongful act can include conflicts of interest, breach of contract, torts, improper self-dealing, allegations of financial mismanagement, allegations of mistakes in error and judgment, such as disclosure of material facts or false or misleading reports. Also allegations of negligence, continual absence of meetings, failure to examine reports and documents before signing, and things like that. So the management of the company, or your organization, essentially. This policy, again, just to drill down, covers for your personal protection in the event that Smoky Mountain is not able to indemnify you by law or bylaw. Reimburse Smoky Mountain in the event that they can indemnify you, and coverage for the entity itself. We have $1 million in insurance in place dating back to 2005. With the acquisition or the introduction of Western Highlands, your organization has grown sizably. There's evidence that we will present to the executive officers of other organizations of your size and stature and the limits that they carry, which just here for this meeting is typically more than $1 million. But that's what is in place at the time. Be happy to entertain any questions that you have. Tracy's a great reference. She knows all about it, but did want to speak to you today on behalf of the insurance carrier to thank you for the ability to partner with you. Thank you for your service. This is an insurance vehicle, again, that allows you to do your job and allows you to have the peace of mind to make the decisions and to do your job on behalf of this organization.
Is it helpful to differentiate between the tail coverage related to Western? We spent some time, negotiating, and I know Chuck, we've gone kind of back and forth on that, established that versus the other general board insurance. I don't know, especially folks, legacy Western members, if you have any questions about that.
I believe the tail coverage that we took out for Western Highlands professional and general liability went 3 years, and I'm pretty sure that the D&O went 3 years, and we talked about that earlier tonight, and I'm going to confirm that the D&O was a 3-year tail coverage. That's my recollection right now. We were also going to provide them with copies of those policies just to ensure that everything is adequately covered. And again, as Tyler said from conversations earlier tonight and yesterday, we feel like we need to increase the policy limit.
Western Highlands, just as a point of clarification, Western Highlands became a part of our policy, our existing policy, the date of the official merger. And so if we need to tailor that date back to October, we can have an offline conversation, but the intent is for Western Highlands on a going forward basis to be covered under this policy. Does the recommendation to possibly increase the limit. Thank you very much for your time and your service. Thanks for allowing us to be here.
Thank you.
All right, our next item on the agenda, I guess back in agenda item G, DWAC committee appointment. And that's Ronnie Beal. Ronnie, saying something about that, about your DWAC committee appointment?
Well, I appreciate being on part of this committee, and I hope that I can represent Smokey well and this board well. The Medicaid waiver, as everybody knows, is a very complicated thing. I certainly don't understand it, nor does anybody in Raleigh understand it. So I feel right at home in this committee. But all the people who started the Medicaid waiver, as Brian will tell you, whether it be Secretary of Council or any others, all those folks are gone. All of them. So the Medicaid waiver is very important to go forward, and because that's the money. So we look forward to serving on the committee, and we'll do everything we can to see that Smokey represents Western.
Congratulations, Ronnie. If there's any encouragement, I've got re-ups on that committee, so Ronnie and I can tag team. And, you know, all of those folks that left state service who are experts on the waiver either work for us directly or are consultants, so that makes you feel any better. We're pretty well situated there.
Thank you, Ronnie. The next item we have is the County Commissioner Advisory Board update. Call on Michael Lavender.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you may remember from our previous meetings, we have been working on a plan to bring the County Commissioner Advisory Board online, and our recommendation is to do that at the County Commissioner Association meeting that will be held in August. That will be here in Asheville this year. We have been working with the County Commissioner Association. Shelley has contacted them, and they have arranged for us to have some time from 11:30 to 2 p.m. on that Saturday of the retreat. We will be having lunch and working lunch, followed by ample discussion and voting and so forth. Brian, Shelley, Tracy, and I met earlier in the week and have kind of outlined what we hope to accomplish at that meeting, and Shelley's working on the logistics of the meeting, getting everything from the lunch to making sure everything's lined up for. She's sending out emails to the county managers to make sure that their representative is named and is invited to the meeting. In addition to that, we have kind of had a tentative agenda outline, and it goes something like this. I won't give you elaborate detail, but we want to do an overview of Smokey to include things like the history of Smokey, what our financial sources are. If you were at our retreat in February, you may remember Tracy did an overview that looked at things like what our deliveries what our sources of funding were. She and Brian put that together. We're going to pull parts of that. Brian's going to present that. We're going to look at our types of services. Then we'll move to what is the role of the Smokey Advisory Committee as we see it from what the General Assembly wrote about it in the legislation to kind of how we, we back up and not go there. I had another thought in mind, but that'll open up a can of worms. But at any rate, we want to introduce them to the current board members on this board. We want to talk about how they want to meet going forward. Do they want to meet in one large meeting each quarter, or do they want to break out in their regional meetings as we had originally suggested? They need to vote on that to have some ownership in it. Do they want to meet with their council of government, for example? Then we want to talk about a needs assessment. Brian has been working with staff to look at some of the things that the counties have a need for from a, in terms of, what's the word I'm looking for? I just lost my train of thought there. In other words, for example, with their MOE funds, for example, what do they have a need for? We may talk about that. We'll also look at the impact this state budget is going to have. Talk about what future meetings might look like. And so we've got 2.5 hours to have lunch and do all of that. If you think we can do it,
we're going to do it, Mike.
We're going to do it.
We're going to do it.
And so that's what we're looking at. And so any questions about where we're headed with that?
Thank you, Michael. And also, in conjunction with the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, our own Ronnie Bill is going to be appointed president in August. So we're all looking forward to giving him a hard time about that. So congratulations.
Thank
Okay, at this time, call on Brian to give us the Chief Executive Officer report.
Okay, Rick, thank you. We actually covered information about the Western Regional Partnership. You may not have recognized it when Lanier was giving us the briefing on I'm just gonna work it into the program here. Information about the activity at the General Assembly and actually the lack of action on any kind of Medicaid reform. We have been anticipating something happening based on the proposal of the governor and the secretary. And while we took steps to move in the direction of consolidation and regionalization based on the desires of the secretary and DHHS, of course, we're mindful of the fact that they're enabled by the General Assembly. I think that's how that works. Paper covers rock, scissors cuts paper, one of those things. So, the lack of any requirements associated with General Assembly in this short session, I guess, calls into question what our pace and approach should be. And that's probably the fairest way to put it. We continue to do the things that make sense to do. We're in business with 8 other organizations across the state to do the same thing. A couple of them are fairly close to us. We continue to look at business operations, opportunities for greater standardization, greater efficiency. Best example of that is the agreement that we just came to within the past week or two around credentialing, where we'll be providing that as a professional service, you could say, for both partners and CenterPoint. So we'll be able to scale that activity to a higher level and while gaining efficiencies. And actually, the first thing we'll gain is a level of professionalism with that probably was not evident in any of the organizations. It'll take probably a couple of years before there's any real savings, but it's the right thing to do, and we can see that just as partners and CenterPoint can. So we have those kinds of things to show for our effort. Where this ends up, we heard Lanier talk about the uncertainty of the budget process, much less Medicaid reform. The consistent messages are always about whole person care, greater financial management through full capitation at some pace. Different opinions about that. It's what we're already doing.
Yeah.
We'll continue to be, very thoughtful, very assertive in our efforts to partner with healthcare around, especially primary care, opportunities there for greater care for individuals that are part of our capitation. And I'm hopeful that in the next couple of months we'll have some more concrete things to say about what we're doing with that. So in terms of the Western Regional Partnership, we'll do the things that continue to make sense. That's what I can tell you.
See, I'm misunderstanding it a little. It's a little hard to hear me. Are they not talking about rather than going to 4 NCOs, taking it back up to 7? Did I hear you say that?
In the budget report, and you have to be careful about how concretely to take these things.
Yeah.
There was, I think it was a $1.2 million reduction that was made in our administrative funding. And the rationale for that was to be associated with mergers of the MCOs. And I think the specific language was that there would be no more than 7 by July 1st, 2015. Now, because that is stated as an explanation for the reduction, it is not a part of legislation, that is a requirement. The money part is the requirement. How it gets done is not required. That makes sense to you? So, you know, that there was that reference, and then again, what I thought we'd be talking about tonight was the new, and hopefully the amendment to the Medicaid modernization bill that talked about, really the only reference there around any kind of geographical changes related to CCNC and their regions. And again, you know, what we've talked about here is part of the problem is you have this one plan with regions for the MCO. You have a whole state system of networks for CCNC that has nothing to do with those regions. And then you have what were discussed for a period of time, the healthcare regions that the ACOs would probably develop around, which is a third kind of demarcation on the map. And none of these three coincide. That's one just basic problem we have with all of this. So that's it on Western Regional Partnership. 2-year anniversary waiver operation. This is a great opportunity for us to talk about what I feel is the great progress we've made as an organization. Not only going live initially on the waiver, but then successfully managing the challenge of a large increase in our catchment area related to Western Highlands joining us. So I think we have a really great, I don't think we do have a really great story to tell. And I think it'd be a mistake if we didn't, put it that way. So what we are planning is, I think the date is August 15th, which is a Friday. And it happens to be the Friday before the Saturday that we're doing the kickoff with the county commissioners. Some sort of a open house. We could do a legislative luncheon. Have some people come and say nice things about us, and just talk about what we've achieved. So if you want to pencil that in, that's what we're looking at, and we'll have more about that as the time comes closer. Excuse me. Asheville office relocation, we talked about this on the executive committee. Always get choked up when I think about moving. The simplest way I could put this is our facility there on Biltmore Avenue is so much better suited to become a treatment facility, which we really fantasized about, to be honest, that could provide a much more comprehensive approach to everything from walk-in to crisis care through facility-based crisis, be able to operate 24/7, 365, really take the place of what unfortunately has become the role that Mission Hospital has been providing. The presentations there are way too high. We continue to do things in the system to try to change that flow with greater access, but nonetheless, it just seems to be a tide that's difficult to turn without just some major reset. Allowing that space that we now occupy to be turned into this comprehensive outpatient and facility-based crisis program would be a major reset that everybody's in favor of, quite honestly. The county that owns the building, Mission Hospital, it's just obvious to see, on our behalf that would make an awful lot of sense, and it's just has been a matter of us getting this up on the radar screen so that we could do all the work needed to find another place to go to that would meet our needs, and in the process really start to think more about how we use our human resources at Smokey. What people need offices. how many offices do they need? Where do they need them? You know, we've been nothing but a barrel rolling down the hill for a couple of years on all of this. So it's an opportunity that we've taken to really stop and look at how to best use our staff and how they should be deployed. I guess is the best way to put it. So how much space do you need? Who goes there? All of that. I mean, we've had these conversations, and for some of you board members who are newer, you know, we've had a series of these conversations in each phase as we've gotten bigger. Now here we are with another one. You know, we just kind of hopped into the space there in Asheville because that was the easiest thing to do for the time being, and now recognize that we need to think more deeply about that. So we're moving as quickly as we can with that, and we can keep it posted. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to talk with you about that. We actually do have a footprint here of a space. The most likely space we're looking at is Ridgefield, which is down south of 40 on Brevard Road, kind of behind the old mall there, Biltmore Park Mall, Biltmore Square Mall. It's quite a large health-related complex back there. We've been working with folks, you know, Randy Cunningham, the architect, who's doing a lot of good work with us to try to design space there that's available, ironically, by the mission is moving out of. So that's what I can tell you about that one. And save the best for last. Yes.
It's Maggie.
Yes.
I think that was a smart, person-centered move.
Okay. Well,
Excellent.
good. Well, everybody, it didn't take long for us to figure out that we just kind of needed to do it. It's just been a matter of getting to it. Not that it hasn't been very important.
Would this be something that Smokey would own, or would you be looking at renting it again?
Renting.
Well, if we have, no, next.
You know, it'd be a great day when things settle down enough that we could build a facility, because that'd be the way to go. It's just, you know, the volatility in our world is such that it's hard to, too many moving parts right now. So that the safest thing, I think, for us is to just find a good, suitable location there and kind of go from there. And now we save the best for last. We found out just this morning that many of you know that this has been, and again, for some of you folks that are newer on the board, we've been at this for at least 2 years, trying to create a facility-based crisis program in our central region in Caldwell County. And took a big run at this last year and came up short. And just this morning found out that I want to make sure I get it right, North Carolina Housing and Finance Association has committed $620,000 to this project. And there's a lot of people, you know, nothing like this over this period of time happened without a lot of people working very diligently. But I can tell you for sure that nobody deserves the credit any more than our own Jenny Q, which just really took this on as just something she was going to get done. It did. Certainly RHA has been, you know, right there with us, and to be honest, we couldn't have done this without Caldwell County. You know, happening big time. Again, some of you remember there's the way the financing had to be done, we had to do through the county, so, you know, people had faith in us. And Jenny, I would certainly welcome any additional comments you have.
Well, thank you, Barney. This is just a huge, huge step forward for the central region of Alexander, Caldwell, and McDowell. And it just did take a huge partnership. And certainly we have to say that Rick French and Joyce Edwards and Michael Lavender all put time into this. And I learned a lot during this about the challenges of community education and the really helping a community understand the help that they need and the steps that are required to get that help. And it's not always easy to get everybody on board, but we had just tenacity and relentless work on this from a really strong group of people. And this board has been hugely supportive, so thank you for believing we can make it happen.
Jenny, I'd like to say, Civil Services, board is also contributing money to this. We're really appreciative of that. Michael Lavender, Joyce Edwards, Darrell Robertson, Ellen Allison, and myself, yes, on that board. And I've been working through some issues, but really thankful for the money that we put together to help match, but very appreciative of you spearheading this. I know it hasn't been easy. We appreciate it very much. I don't know if Michael wants to say anything or not. It's something we greatly need in our region.
I just think that it sounds like we're just repeating the same thing, and I honestly, if you really want to know how tough it's been, go back and look at, I believe it was February, March, Dow County Commission meeting, and see what Jenny went through. You just don't know until you see what she went through in our county. Our commissioners put her through, I mean, it wasn't a ringer, it was 3 or 4 ringers. And she stood up and took it and didn't need to, we know her head of her. We really, and I think that they did that, they did that. So thank you, Jim.
Probably no single greater thing could be accomplished for that region than this right here. So that's how great it is. Okay, well, I'd like to end on a high note, so I'll turn it over now.
All right.
We get to do that.
All right. The next item on the agenda, Vantage Point. Legal compliance, Tracy Hayes, General Counsel. Okay, Tracy, turn it over to you. Get out of your way.
I'll try and keep this brief. We decided to do Vantage Point this month on legal and compliance, since you had to approve the compliance plan, try and keep those in sync. And so I thought I'd just kind of go through a little bit of what I do for Smokey. And
Blast it right out, Tracy.
That's right.
It's hard to hear.
Okay, sorry. I'm sure some of you wonder, why does Smokey need to have in-house counsel? Why do you have to have a full-time attorney working for Smokey? So Jill, if you can go to the next slide. You know, what would I say I do here? I don't know if any of you have seen the movie Office Space, but that is a scene where some of the executive staff are asking staff, what exactly is it that you do for us? You can go to the next slide, Jill. So essentially, one of my biggest functions is to provide legal advice to the organization on a wide array of different issues. For those of you who looked at the compliance plan and you looked at Appendix C, you'll see that there's about 10 pages of laws, rules, and regulations that I referenced in that compliance plan, all of which apply to our operations pretty much on a daily basis. And I'm asked pretty frequently, what does this particular law, rule, or regulation mean for Smokey? What does it mean for an individual staff member? This is kind of, I think, what most people are thinking. Let's try and get this by legal. Make sure it goes pretty quickly so the ethics department doesn't see it. Well, at Smokey, I am the legal and the ethics department, so they can't really do that. Unfortunately, I tend to get a lot of questions from staff, particularly from care coordination staff who are out in the field, out in the community, about abuse, neglect, and exploitation issues. And that's one of the more challenging features of my role, is to provide advice to staff on what is the best response, what kind of reports do they need to be making, what can we do to ensure consumer safety, and also what can we do to protect Smokey, because we do face some liability as our staff are out there in the community interacting with families and consumers and learning about issues with those families. Another big thing I do, this is probably, I don't know, lately it seems like 50% of what I do is, can we sign this document? We have a lot of contracts, a lot of agreements, letters of support, different types of proposals are presented to us on pretty much a daily basis, and the question for me is, can we sign this and should we sign it? What kind of risks are there to Smokey if we sign this document? People get served a lot at Smokey. Again, this happens a lot with our community collaboration and our care coordination staff. I would say probably once or twice a week on average, somebody somewhere at Smokey is getting served with a subpoena. Whether it's a subpoena for records because somebody needs medical records, or whether it's a subpoena for testimony to appear and testify in a guardianship proceeding or a competency hearing. There's lots of reasons why staff at Smokey are subpoenaed, and those also come through me. We get a lot of privacy and security questions, and for those of you who sat through the executive committee, we talked about the compliance plan. You'll look through that. We have a full-time, we have a privacy officer and a security officer. Charlie Berry, who's been with Smokey for many years, is our privacy officer, and he is excellent on all of the privacy and HIPAA issues that we deal with. And George Scott, who those of you on the Western board may remember, George was the MIS director for Western, is a senior director here at Smokey, and he serves as our security officer, making sure that our computer systems are secure and that we don't have any data breaches. And then, of course, I deal with a lot of litigation, and we talk about that in closed session in terms of what kind of cases may be filed against Smokey, with whether it's providers or whether it's litigation that we are pursuing on behalf of Smokey. Part of that litigation is our Medicaid consumer appeals, and I'm extremely fortunate to have working for me Jerry Kumar. Jerry is our Associate General Counsel. For those of you from Western, you may remember that Jerry had been hired by Western as a staff attorney prior to the merger, and I'm really thrilled to have Jerry with us. She handles all of our Medicaid consumer appeals, and so those are the appeals filed by our Medicaid beneficiaries contesting decisions that have been made by Smokey. We handle a lot of provider disputes, and that can kind of run the gamut from contract negotiation to disputes around authorization, disputes around claims and reimbursement, the routine monitoring, the complaint investigations, and network management decisions. And then I get a lot of questions about program integrity in terms of fraud, waste, and abuse. There are a lot of specific laws, rules, and regulations that govern Medicaid fraud, and it's our role at Smokey to be a prevention agency. We have to be preventing Medicaid fraud as well as going out there and detecting Medicaid fraud. And then finally, my role is also to oversee Smokey's compliance program. And you guys have the compliance program plan, and you've already approved that. So Jill, you can go to the next slide. Essentially, just going to go over it very briefly. We are required under federal law to have a compliance program. We have guidance from OIG and our URAC accreditors on what that compliance program has to look like. It has to have 7 elements. You can go ahead, Joe. You have to have a compliance officer and a compliance committee. Anybody who wants to get me that mug, you are welcome to go ahead and do that. Keep going. One of the key features that OIG requires is that as the compliance officer, I have the ability to always come directly to the board. So if there is a compliance issue, I can bring that directly to the board without necessarily having to go through the CEO. Obviously, I haven't had that issue, and that's not a problem we have at Smokey, but I do have to have that ability. We have to have written policies, procedures, and standards of conduct. My goal is to help write those in such a way that they're understandable and that they're clear, and also that they're consistent. One of the big projects we've been working on over the last month, all the senior directors here can attest, I forced them to stay at a meeting until well past 7 o'clock to go through our policies and procedures, do the annual review, and make sure that they were all internally consistent. What we were finding was we had some policies that might not be completely consistent.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome, Sean. Keep going. We have to have effective training and education. At Smoky, employees have to undergo compliance training upon hire, and annually all employees undergo compliance training. We have to have effective lines of communication to make sure that staff understand they can report compliance concerns without any fear of retaliation. We have to have consistent enforcement of standards and disciplinary guidelines with our staff, so we have to make sure that we are treating all of our staff consistently in terms of our disciplinary requirements. And we have to have internal monitoring and auditing to make sure that we are consistently looking at Smoky to make sure that our policies and procedures are being followed. And then if we do discover that something is out of compliance at Smoky, it's our responsibility under the compliance plan to implement a corrective action to correct whatever the identified deficiency is. Just like we would do with a provider, we would have to do the same thing with ourselves. In terms of program monitoring, we have to do risk assessments. Federal law requires us to do an annual security risk assessment, and we will be doing an annual work plan and compliance reporting. I'm going to do a quarterly oral report to the board and one annual written report on compliance activities. And so you look at all those laws, rules, and regulations at the end, those 10 pages, and you wonder why compliance officers don't sleep at night. At any moment, at any given day, something could be going wrong at Smoky, so I don't sleep very well. Anyway, thanks very much. Does anybody have any questions?
Not only a talented attorney and executive, but what a PowerPoint. That's right. That's the nicest use of clip art I've seen in a long time.
Okay, our next item is our, turn it off, whatever it is. No, our next item is the closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11A1 and A3 to consult with attorneys in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege concerning matters of litigation and to prevent disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 122C-126.1 or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statute. Is there a motion to go into closed session? Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Consumer and Family Advisory Committee report. Pat McGinnis, seatback chair. Pat?
Thank you. Well, I'm just one of 3 seatback chairs in this room.
You're the one that's on this piece of paper.
Our steering committee met on June the 9th. We have the following agenda items: the Smoky Mountain Financial Summary and Balance Sheet. We had the Mountain Council Recovery presentation on recovery-oriented systems of care. Nancy had requested that we allow Larry Thompson and Ann Stein to come and talk to us, and they went and presented to us on that. We also talked about the relational agreement, and we did talk about retreat planning and where we might want to have our retreat. Also, Smoky CPAC members are very pleased to continue to be involved in a variety of Smoky committees, all the way to board level committees now, as well as a number of CPAC members are and serve on a variety of other committees and boards in our local communities, as well as participating in having involvement statewide and nationally at a variety of things. Several of our members and all 3 of our board members, our CFAC members sitting here at this table, I'm so proud. We all went to Raleigh to this NC Council training, and it was really good. Some of us went to the state CFAC meeting last month in Gastonia as well, and her presentation about Medicaid reform there, and State of Mental Health by Dave Richards and Dr. Cantrell. But all three of the members who sit on this board, we recently attended this spring council, North Carolina Council Spring Policy Forum, along with several of the board members that are in here, and some smoking staff. The highlight for me, and it wasn't the thing I had checked to go to at that session, but when I looked down and I saw Mary Lloyd's name on the list of presenters, and she's a former CPAC member, and for those of you that don't know Mary, years ago at Foothills, Mary was a young black lady with a child who became a member of our CPAC. She worked in a drugstore part-time in downtown Morganton, and Mary was really struggling with some things. Well, wasn't too awful long after that till Mary went to work for Foothills in the office at Bryan and then had down there, and she now works for Smc-Whn. Well, she was on this panel, and you know, if you don't think CPAC has the power to change lives, you should get to know Mary, because I just can't believe how far she's come since we were sitting down there on our CFAC in Burke County several years ago. And you should hear her talk about the wraparound services. Not only she's been able to secure for her family and help, and you know, managed to make this her life's work, but her commitment to children and the parents. And I believe Mary goes into the schools and does some things with education and stuff. But she's a powerful speaker. I'm really so proud of her and the work she's doing. And she talks about, you know, how she's been only been able to keep her own family member out of the hospital situation and at home and get services, but how she's helping other parents. And I talked to Mary because I really believe the nothing about us without us. And I had Mary's permission before I talked about her at this board meeting. I told her I was going to talk about her at this board meeting because, you know, I didn't want to talk about her without her permission. So, you know, for me, that was really good to see her, and it's just amazing the speaker she is and how far she's come. It seemed to me like one of the guys sitting beside her, she got to speak last, and even then, this guy that worked for the state kept trying to hop the microphone, but she didn't outstanding job. And so I looked at in my review of the workshop that I thought they had a microphone hall. But anyway, it was good. Our members and, you know, the community at large seem to really be enjoying the opportunity also to still participate in Smokey's trainings. And I've heard in a committee meeting today about the mental health first aid trainings being offered from Duncan, and how some of the survivors are taking some of these trainings too. So there's a lot going on right now in the summertime, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more. Nancy and our other Judy may have a little something to add, but I'm so grateful for the opportunities that we have to be at the table and y'all keep extending us, and it was really nice that we all were able to go to Raleigh, and I'm sure we all, Nancy talked to me, got different things from it, but for me it was a real joy to see it. And if Nancy wants to say something to Judy, please feel free. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Pat. All right, next item on the agenda is Provider Advisory Council report. Nothing's not there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Things continue to go well with the work that the council and Smokey and the leadership are doing together. There are a couple of new initiatives with our subcommittees that Smokey participates on. One is we have added a subcommittee for licensed independent practitioners to make sure that they're included on the council and with Smokey. There's a lot of nuances that they need to be familiar with to be successful, and our system needs them to assist in the provision of services for the continuing care. So Christina and Brian really led that charge around making sure that we were getting licensed independent practitioners involved in the council. It's very difficult because they're either working by themselves or with a small group, and anytime they take off to participate, they're not able to bill for any services. So it's very difficult, but there's a new subcommittee on that, and we're really excited about that component. The other new subcommittee that we have we established at our last meeting, I think was initiated by Sean, is an integrated care subcommittee. Brian also wanted to make sure that folks were really invested in this committee. As we move more toward an integrated care model, we want to make sure that the council and Smokey are working together to do as much as we can with the limited resources available. As most of you probably know, the movement is for integrated care, but there's no money to make sure that happens. So we're all going to have to work together really hard for it. The last thing that I'd like to report on, well, the other piece is that the Provider Council continues to work with Smokey around standardization of services and the integration of those. But the last thing I really want to report on is our ethics committee has been meeting kind of on an as-needed basis, and Jerry did a good job of bringing up some ethical concerns that he had around the provider network and about consumer rights and parental rights. And it's been a really hot topic with our Provider Council over the last probably 3 to 4 months around things that are happening within our network with providers that just aren't ethical. And so our ethics subcommittee is burning up emails and trying to figure out how to meet. And Brian really put a charge into the subcommittee to do some hard work to help encourage and shape the network to make sure that what is happening in the network is happening for the best for the consumers as opposed to what's best for business practice. So there's a lot of work and heated discussion around that going on, and it's kind of an exciting and ambiguous time. In any event, we're all working hard together. We appreciate Smokey being at the table as much as they do. Any questions?
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Quality and Improvement Committee report. Paul, can you do that?
Sure. All monthly monitoring measures were reported to DHHS that have standards associated with that. The measures for which Smokey has implemented corrective actions continue to improve. The annual quality management plan, which consists of program description, program evaluation, and work plan and quality improvement projects, was reviewed by the committee, which was Pat and Duncan today because we got stuck in a traffic jam, and thank you both for serving as a committee today. Was reviewed and accepted by a wonderful committee reviewed. I love this one. I get all of these acronyms, and this was wonderful. The committee reviewed the DMHDDSAS contract performance measures, which I assume stands for
Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Abuse Services.
As I just said. And the last thing is the fifth member of the committee will be the chair of the County Commissioner Advisory Board. And really just those of you who are county officials, please get this on your July 7th agenda to appoint somebody. I know it's going to be tough because it's that Saturday Commissioners Association meeting. But if we, I'm not sure if a kind of forum needs to be there to select, but we need a chair because we need a fifth member. And so do it here. Lastly, Julie, Tommy, thank you very much for the staff work on all the materials you prepared and the service you give our committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have items for the consent agenda. Is there any other business? Okay. Seeing that there's no other business, is there a motion for adjournment?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.